All right, we're live. Hi, Larissa.
Hi, Roberto.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I had one topic in mind to talk with you, to discuss with you, and it would be happiness.
I like that.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so tell me, what's happiness for you? How do you define happiness? And are you happy right now?
I think the second part of your question is probably easier. Am I happy right now? Yes. I mean, I think it's an easy question, but happiness or being happy has so many different facets to it. So yes, in general, I'm happy, but of course there's some things that I'm not super happy about, I guess. But what is happiness to me? I don't know. I guess when you feel happy in general, I think there's a lot of gratitude that you feel, and you're kind of in some sort of flow. But I think a huge part of happiness is how you look at things. I think if you look at things negatively, it's very easy to be unhappy. Mm-hmm. But if you try to look at positive aspects of things, then you can be happy.
Mm. I like that. So you actually link happiness to gratitude?
To a certain degree.
To a certain degree.
I mean, I think it always depends on the situation. Some people are in horrible situations, and then it's very difficult to be happy or to look at the positives. But I think we can take an example also from people in the world who have much less than, for example, we have, and they're still happy. Mm-hmm. So it is, I think, a mindset thing, and to a large degree.
I think so, actually, too. It's good that you're telling me this, because I remember that visiting countries that have less resources, that have in general less, I felt like they were happier than, for example, maybe many people that live here in Switzerland. So there might actually be a real connection to the whole concept of happiness and gratitude.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's interesting that you say that as well, because I used to be a flight attendant when I first moved to Switzerland. And I think that experience, going to countries that have much less, let's say, than we have here in Switzerland, and seeing how many people are very, very happy because they make the most of their situation, because they choose to be happy, I think that made a huge impression on me. And that helped me also to realize that to a certain degree, happiness really is you are responsible for your own happiness, and the way you look at life and the way you look at things has a huge influence on your happiness.
Wow, I like that a lot. So you said mindset as well, and you are saying you have to be responsible for your own happiness. So how do you take care of your own happiness?
It's not something I do consistently, but a few years ago, I went through a breakup that was really, really hard for me. And I had a friend recommend that I start a gratitude journal and to write down 3 things at the end of every day that I was grateful for, whether it's big things like huge milestones or little things. Roberto had me on his podcast today. And I found that actually made a huge difference. And it is also something that I recommend to any of my friends that are struggling. It's not an instant solution, but there is something about focusing on gratitude, I think. And then it's easier to spot as well. Once you start concentrating on it a little bit more, it becomes easier to notice those things that you can be grateful for. And so that's a huge thing that I do.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it's a great start if you haven't maybe started with that yet, or if you have I have been thinking about how to start with the whole gratitude journey. I think that's a good start. But does it have to be 3 things, or can it be more than 3 things, or is it like the main?
No, it can be as many things as you want. Okay. I think, Yeah, for me, it's also, I'm not the best journal keeper. And it's something that even growing up, I tried over and over. I had a diary when I was a kid. I'd write in it consistently for a week or two, and then I would forget about it. So to limit it to 3 things makes it for me more manageable. But sometimes I write down more than 3 things if I have the space. Sometimes it's just 3 things. Sometimes it's a little bit less, but maybe they're bigger things that I'm a little bit more excited about. And again, that's kind of the introduction to it. Whereas over time, you start to see things that maybe you don't even bother writing down, but you're like, oh, I went on a bike ride today, and there's all these flowers that are blossoming, or it's been raining so much, but everything's so green, and that things like that brings me joy. So that helps.
That's very nice, actually. I was thinking about I don't know, but imagine if you would write things down that you didn't like during the day. I think the whole perspective changes, like as you were telling us before, like me, us, the audience, no, but me, as you were telling me before, it's also like a mindset. It's not just like, okay, now I'm gonna write 3 things down and that's it. It's like, how you say it, you connect it to joy, you connect it to little things on the daily life, about your daily life.
Yeah.
And however, what do you do with things that you didn't like along your day? Like, do you also do something with that? Maybe not putting much focus on it, because again, it's maybe negative, but sometimes, some negative things in life or some negative feelings have always like another background in you, and they want to come out. So how do you manage those maybe rather negative aspects?
Yeah, I think that's sometimes a little bit harder. It depends how negative. I mean, I don't know how you handle these things, but I think what I've learned over the years, and also I went to therapy for many years as well, just in general life stuff. I think therapy I recommend to anybody because it's not maybe what some people think of it classically, but to me it's kind of like a life coaching. It helps you handle life better. It makes you look at things from a different perspective. And in that time, I also learned that it's really important to give things that make you unhappy or really sad or things that are upsetting, to give them the time and the space to do nothing and feel those things. So especially these days, at least, I don't know how it is for you, but for me, I like to distract myself with my phone, watch TV or whatever, listen to music, and it's easy to just not make space for those things and kind of put them away somewhere inside. And eventually, I think you do have to put things aside because you don't want to dwell on them, but I think it's really important to make space for those feelings. If you're having a really bad day, or you're going through something really tough, sometimes you just have to break down and cry. Ideally at home, but maybe
ideally not in the tram or in the train.
But and that's okay. And I find it's not something I notice immediately when I give space for those things, how important that is. But over time, that it does help you heal more. You don't have to dwell on the things, but you do need to take the time, and you need to say, okay, this is really upsetting and I'm upset, and just be nice to yourself, be kind to yourself, and
make yourself a priority as well, right?
Absolutely. Make yourself a priority and do something nice for yourself. Like, I think flowers is something I don't often go buy for myself because it costs money and I'm always at the office, so I don't get to enjoy them. And but at the same time, sometimes it's just really nice when you come home and you're like, I bought myself flowers. It's great. And I think just things like that is, I think those things are really important, and they're little steps. Or if you have a whole bunch of things that you need to get done and you feel like you're on a timeline, you're super stressed, maybe just go home and don't do anything. If you don't have the energy for it, it's probably best to give yourself a break.
Oh, that's nice. Yes, you gave me a lot of keywords now. I was like trying to pick one, but I'm gonna pick maybe 3 of it. The first one, flowers.
Okay.
By the way, me as a man,
Yeah.
I buy myself flowers too.
Well, they're beautiful.
I know it's not always.
I'm going to bring you flowers next time I come.
Oh, yeah, thank you. But that's something also like very, I don't know, people might think, oh, that's like very girly. That's like very, but flowers was one point. The second point was therapy. You just mentioned it like very briefly, but it's so important. And I think you just encourage people to do so. But can we maybe talk more about therapy? Because I feel like more people go to therapy than we think, or at least in my case. Like I know a lot of people that go to therapy, and they told me like, after years of going to therapy, and I never would have imagined that they go to therapy because I feel like they they look, functional. No, but they look like strong people. But maybe that's the reason why they look like this, because they go to therapy. And in countries like, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but in countries like in South America, or I even think like Southeast Asia or Asia in general, like going to therapy, it's like really going for people who are like crazy.
Yeah.
And I feel like in maybe in the Western world, it's more common for people to go to therapy. But how did you discover therapy? How was the whole process like? Were you also thinking like that before you went? Like, oh no, that's just like for people who really need that. But maybe you just really needed that.
I mean, I was definitely raised in a household where we don't need therapy. We're stronger than that. We don't need therapy, and I think that was really common probably for a lot of people my age growing up. Probably, as you said, I'm sure in some places that's still the case today. For me personally, it was the breakup that I had mentioned before that drove me to go to therapy. But the reason was because probably about, I don't know, five years before that, approximately, I had gone through another breakup where I had initiated the breakup, but it was really, I guess, in a way, it just kind of disrupted my life. I mean, it was my choice. I was, throwing the bomb at my own life. But what I didn't realize at the time, I think, is because I was the one that initiated it, how upsetting it would actually be to me. And it's not that I didn't let myself cry or I didn't think I could cry, but what ended up happening was I was quite down, I would say, for a few years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, not that everybody could see it and what's wrong with you, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't finding joy. I didn't have what I wanted in terms of a stable relationship, working towards a marriage, a family, and things like that. And I was struggling to find it. And that was really, really difficult. And so when I started this next relationship and we broke up, we weren't together for as long and it wasn't quite as serious, but it was upsetting in particular because it wasn't initiated by me. And it was probably the first time in my life that I was blindsided would be the wrong word, but it's not at all what I wanted. I didn't want to break up at all, and I got broken up with, and it was really upsetting. And so I did not want to be in this state of feeling lost and feeling down all the time for 3 or 4 years again, or however many years it was. And I thought, I need someone to help me manage this so that I just, obviously these things take time, but that I can get over it as quickly as is healthily possible. And it really, really helped a lot. And the focus in the beginning, of course, was the relationship, but it very quickly also turned into a focus on me, on, obviously they go into your background, how you're raised, and. But it was very helpful because without me really noticing at the time, the focus went from my broken heart to me and helping me work on certain things.
Yeah. I feel like it always, it needs something that makes the reason, the reason, for example, for you to go.
Yeah.
But I think therapy in general, and I'm not the best, like, I don't know how therapy works because I've never been to. I think, yeah, it always needs something small, maybe, or maybe not that small. Like if it's a breakup, it's maybe not that small. But yeah, it's necessary in order to go in you.
Yeah.
And to maybe not even fix it's not the right word, but maybe look into all of your aspects of you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and maybe try to work on those. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I feel like it's very interesting and also relevant. You know, even without going to therapy, I feel like people should do that. Like they should, you know, go in themselves. Yeah. And just, you know, maybe try to optimize things or to fix things. I don't know if that's the right word for that, but you know, to sit down, as you said before, and, you know, also with gratitude and all of these big topics, but also just look around and look inside. It's not always exactly reflect. That's actually the word I was looking for. Thank you. But it's more it's not always like, oh, it's always the others, or, you know, it's I feel like, yeah, of course there are some external factors that
of course
can
affect
the whole process. Let's say it doesn't have to be external factors, it also can be you internal. So
and a big thing that they say also is you can't control how people act, but you can control how you react.
Exactly.
And
your emotions. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I get brought back to that often. If something upsets me, I try to think about that. It doesn't mean just being aware of that doesn't make it easy to react better, but it's very much how I feel about this situation or how this turns out has a lot to do with what I can control, or what I can control I will, or what I can influence. And sometimes it's just a reality check of this doesn't actually change. Just because I know about this and it upsets me now, it doesn't actually change anything. For example, like things are the same way they used to be. I just thought maybe this would be this way and now it's not. But nothing's different, for example. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I got it. Something you mentioned also many times so far, well, many times, just several times, it's a breakup. And I feel like that gives me the impression that you are very passionate about love. And, you know, when you love, you just go all in. You fall, you know, you really fall.
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe what was now the biggest breakup and why was it that big? I mean, you mentioned one before that actually came from your side, but like, if I understood it right, you actually didn't want to, but you did it. Right? Is it no?
No. I did want to, and I do still think, even now, many years later, it was the right thing. I mean, I think, of course, at the very beginning, you question, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how life is going to turn out. But essentially, we had been together for 5.5 years. We lived together. We had talked more than once about eventually getting married, having a family, what that would look like, etc. We got along really, really well. We complemented each other very well. I think we had some similar hobbies, so there was things we did together, but we also had our own hobbies and our own friends. So it was, to a certain degree, on the outside, the perfect relationship, but nothing's ever perfect. It got to a point for me where things weren't really moving forward, and that's fine. People move at their own pace. I'm not one to put pressure on someone in terms of timing, but it just wasn't. For me, I kind of took it as a sign. I'm not that happy. We've been together for quite a while. We're not married. We're not engaged. This is kind of a sign that I should probably now try something new. Like, I'm not happy, and there's no commitment here to the degree that I need to put all of my effort and all of my being into making this work. And I think that is something where, I mean, if you are together with someone for a very long time and you live together, I often question what's the difference between that and actually being married. And I've never been married, but anyone I know that has been married says it just is a bit different. You've just, when you're not married, it's almost like you've got that door open a little bit. And when you're married, you shut the door of other options. And somehow I think that's what it felt like for me, but that the door was a little bit open. And if at this point, 5 years into our relationship, it was going to take all of this effort, really, like, and I don't mean a little bit of effort, like I was already putting in effort, and I'm sure we both were, but it was really going to take digging deep to make it work. Was this really then the right relationship to be in? Or should this digging deep come later on in life? Like once you've got kids or something and life is very different and you don't have time to prioritize each other because there's other things that need your time, like little humans that you're trying to keep alive. So anyway, that for me was a sign that it was probably not the right thing anymore. And nevertheless, it still hurt because I still had a lot of love for him, and I wasn't in love anymore, but of course the love is still there. And I knew I needed to do something. But at the same time, you're kind of like, you're like on a track because you've talked about what the future is going to look like. And whether you mean to or not, you think about the future with that person, and then you change your mind. And yes, it was initiated by me, but it was like I ejected myself from this track that I was like, I'm on a train track, and I just jumped off. It doesn't make it, it makes it emotionally easier at the time probably than for the person who is surprised or who doesn't want to break up. But in terms of what it means for your life and your future, it's kind of similar. Like all of a sudden you're starting at square one again. So that's why it was upsetting, but not because I didn't want to break up, but because I kind of like self-sabotaged my life, I guess. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Or maybe not, I don't know, like wishful thinking and destiny and life were not aligned.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Right. Which
Somehow.
Doesn't always have to be the case, but sometimes you can like influence certain things. And
yes.
Maybe the things that you couldn't influence anymore, or
yes.
Yeah, it's like, I think you just like let go. Started to let go.
Yes.
Which is, sometimes
that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. But I also like the door symbolism there. Like, it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Again, not ever having been married myself, but I feel like a lot of married people would probably agree that is kind of what it's like. I mean, you're committed before you get married anyway. Yeah. But suddenly,
of course, it's really
like,
it's like
sealed.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think also breakups can be totally different depending on your age and life situation.
Yes.
Like you were living together already and we're 5 years together. This is completely different than being in love with 20s, like in your beginning of 20s or mid 20s, not living together. It's different. So when people talk about breakups, it's not like, oh yeah, we just broke up, It's like you have like a whole life, around it. Yeah. And you have to work on all of that as well. It's not just like that breakup and that's it. It's just, again, you said future. It's your future. It's I don't know, for example, things like apartment. Like, I mean, I've been myself in this situation as well. Like, what about the apartment? And what about, other things? That you
friends,
actually,
mutual
mutual friends.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, it's not just a breakup, or it depends on the whole situation.
Absolutely. I don't think you can say one is worse than the other, because I think it just depends so much on the relationship itself. And it doesn't matter if you're together for a year or 5 years or 10 years. Living together or not living together, I think emotionally any of those breakups can be just as hard as the others. But in terms of like logistics, it is a little bit more complicated when you like share a life and suddenly you're splitting that life.
Yeah, that sucks, to be honest. But well, it's possible. It's doable and possible. Okay, so maybe going back to the breakup, how did you find happiness then? after that? Like maybe after visiting therapy, going to therapy, maybe it took you quite a while, which is understandable. But how did you, and maybe time-wise, when could you find happiness again?
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, it's a process, right? So it happens over time, and maybe all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm really happy." Or, in particular, when it comes to breakups, you're like, "Oh, I didn't think about that person," or you kind of get to a point where you're like, "Actually, it's probably better that we broke up." Yeah. So I think all of that helps. But for me, yeah, it was therapy obviously helped. Yeah, and I think just time. I did invest a lot. That sounds like an exaggeration, but I think I invested a lot, not financially, but emotionally, in working towards feeling better. Whether it was doing the therapy, practicing self-love, a lot of practicing self-love.
Love that.
Where a lot of the time also you're essentially just looking into a mirror saying nice things to yourself and you're going, what am I doing? Yeah. But I found over time, all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, I am like one of the happier people around.
Yes.
So all of that helps. Yeah, and then I'm trying to think when this was, but it was actually quite a while later. I was already reasonably happy, but I went on a trip. So maybe a quick sidebar.
Yeah, sure.
As you know, I grew up in Canada to Swiss parents. I moved to Switzerland when I was 20, and then I've spent most of my vacations since then going to Canada to visit my family. A few years ago, I went on a trip. I mean, I would do little city trips and things like that. I was a flight attendant when I first moved here, so I traveled a lot. But all of a sudden, and I didn't realize this until I was on the trip, it was the first time I went on a trip just for myself.
Nice.
I went by myself. I booked all the travel by myself. I ended up meeting a friend there, so we did a lot of stuff together, but it was the first time I went on a trip. I didn't have this schedule of I need to see this person, I want to see this person, I want to do this. My family, obviously I want to see my family. They want to have dinner with me. I want to do this and get as much time with everybody as I can. I was somewhere where I didn't really know anybody except my friend, and I could do whatever I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I was sleeping really well, and I would maybe plan what am I going to do today or the next 2 or 3 days, kind of an idea, but I was really just living however I felt in that moment and on that day. And
sounds great.
It was. And I suddenly realized that it was the first time, at least as an adult, which I guess ever, because when you're a kid, you only get to make so many choices yourself.
True.
It was the first time I really went on a trip just for myself and just did what I wanted when I wanted. And if I wanted to sleep and not do anything, that was fine. And that was amazing. And I've kept doing that now more often. But I mean, you've just come back from a long trip as well. So you know.
Yeah, I know.
You know what that feels like.
Yeah, it's great. And wait, before maybe going more into detail, do you feel like sometimes people need like a hardship, like a challenge, like in this case, a specific case, like a breakup, heartbreak, in order to grow, to leave maybe this kind of experience that you had for the first time by yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it always feels like you need, in order to appreciate more happiness in your life, it feels like you really need to learn the other side. You need to.
You do.
Exactly.
I mean, what is it? No, what is it? There's like this saying, I forget what it is now, like, but essentially, like, without rain, there's no flowers. No rain, no sunshine, or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I just have the song in mind, which is not.
But I
no
think
sunshine when she's gone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have in my head too. No, but as hard as it is to go through those things, and I don't wish it on anyone, and I don't want to go through such heartbreak again, which is probably impossible to avoid. But I do think it's important, and I do find there's incredible growth in those situations or in those hardships. So,
I think so too, yeah. And now, I'm thinking about, because you mentioned it before, me traveling, going for a long time to different places. I was thinking like, there was a breakup too. It was not a romantic
yeah, you're right, though,
breakup. But it was actually a breakup too, and I had to let go of many things, and in order to start maybe not from scratch, but it was a beginning. It was a new beginning for me.
Yep.
It was a new year. I was 1 year older, and many new things began since then.
Yeah.
So now thinking about breakups, it's not always like passionate romance breakups.
No, absolutely not.
It's also
new chapters or
chapters in
breakups.
Life. Yeah.
And I agree, breakups. I mean, there's also friendships sometimes break up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And jobs, other aspects in life. Like it's not always romantic relationships. Definitely not. And I mean, and to me, the bravery it took for you to just go and travel the way you did, and I love it, and you're an inspiration.
Oh yes, there was
But I think it's amazing, and I'm so happy for you that you did it.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm happy too, actually, and I think we talked already off camera about it. I am still happy, and as you said before, I'm very grateful for everything I experienced. Or I have experienced so far.
Even though it was hard.
Even the hard things, right? Because I think, again, those hard things make you grow somehow. And, when you're in it, like in the whole situation, you might hate everything and everyone.
100%.
And, it's
100%.
crazy. But once you look back, like it took me 2 years. Actually, it took me 2 years. To let go and also to feel how I feel now, like, oh, I'm very grateful. Like, doesn't matter what happened. It's good. It wasn't good at that time, but now it's like, oh, it's knowledge. It's new feelings or old feelings, whatever. But it's new knowledge I have now.
Yeah.
So
and I think the hard thing is, and I mean one of the hardest things is the first time you go through it. But even later in life, you've kind of learned, okay, things will get better again. And that is helpful, even though you still have to go through it. Like, just because you've gone through hardships before doesn't mean it's less hard. It's usually new situations anyway, so it's harder in its own way. But, I mean, I've also found myself in difficult situations going, oh, I just want this to pass. And it will. Yeah. But you still have to go through it.
Yeah,
so.
It's true. Yeah, I think one of the hardest challenges is probably the time. Like you'll never know when it will be over, or when it's whatever. You will never know.
No, it's true.
I think it's also like you always wait for things to get better.
Yeah.
But then again, to what you said before, which was very good, is like you are responsible for that.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're I remember talking about gray clouds. Remember that I think I told you, like, I feel like I'm in a gray cloud.
Yes.
Like a very.
I remember.
You remember? Like it's a very gray cloud, and I mean, I was happy then that I recognized that I was in a gray cloud, because maybe not everyone recognizes that. Yeah. But the thing was, I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like maybe waiting for some things to move, to happen. Yeah. Whatever. But maybe I was not quite taking responsibility, as you said before, or I was like rather passive than more proactive, But
maybe you needed that time. Yeah. Too. I think I'm also a little bit like that. Like, first you're just in the rain cloud going, what is happening? Okay, something's going to change, and then maybe it doesn't. But I think that's everybody's individual process.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a friend once tell me when I went through another heartbreak, and she said, well, what are you going to do to make it better? But this was in the beginning of the heartbreak, and I said,
like, let me cry.
well, no, and I said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till it gets better. And I think she and I are just different people in also how we would vocalize these things. For me, waiting for things to get better doesn't mean I'm going to sit here just waiting.
Of course.
But I do also need to give myself the time when something happens to be sad about it, to be upset, to maybe mourn something that I've lost, and to get my bearings and think about, okay, what do I want to do? Where I think she as a person is just more, okay, this isn't working, I need to do something else. And she has this different energy. And I think neither way is better or worse. I just think everybody's different and they handle things differently.
Absolutely, yeah.
But so I also tend to let the rain cloud stick around for a while.
For a while, right?
Because you don't necessarally know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know it's there.
Yeah.
So you need to think about it for a while.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
And I think that's like a good start, to even again recognize the gray cloud and to see.
Absolutely.
Okay, I can see it, and it's there. So.
And I don't want it.
Exactly, I don't want it, but. As you said, like, okay, maybe I need now time to think what I'm gonna do.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, I have a plan right now for this gray cloud, which I knew years back that
like,
it will come.
I'm just gonna move that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Imagine like blow it away, like go away. That would be great. No, but it's not like that. And sometimes, some days you feel like, oh, it's gone.
It's
right?
like,
yeah. It's like, no,
just kidding, I'm back.
Yeah, kidding, I'm here, and you're like, damn.
But I think that's also one of the things. Yeah, some days you're like, oh, it's gone, and then it's back. But the days where it's gone become more and more, and the days where it's back become less and less until all of a sudden it's not really there.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody has shitty days.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, no, you go ahead. I think so. I don't know. But exactly, that's also very important. Like, your life won't be always sunny and cloudless.
No.
You will have from time to time gray clouds and rainy days and hardships and pains and heartbreaks and all kind of other negative feelings.
Yeah.
But it depends on you exactly how you navigate through those kind of challenges.
Yeah.
Okay. So we went to this breakup. We also got to know how you more or less got out of it. What about now? What about today? Where do you get your happiness from? Where are your happiness bits in life, and how do they keep you alive?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yes.
I think, there's so many aspects. And
Go ahead. We have to. No, I don't know. No, we have to.
The question is also like, I think there's things that give you long-term happiness, and then there's also like short-term happiness.
Oh, wait. Okay. Please explain.
Or like deeper happiness where you truly feel happy on the inside, and things that make you happy like in the moment, or like a good day. So like,
oh, wow.
Like the sun shining, that
deep
makes me so happy.
Oh, yeah. But for me, it's a deep one.
It is a deep one, but it can make me happy. But if it's raining the next day, then I'm a little bit sad. Like it's... Yeah. Obviously, the more sunshine you get, the happier you are. One big thing that I've realized or learned over time as well is having some sort of goal to be working towards something. It can be work-related. That's not generally the case for me. Like I really like my job. I really, really enjoy my job. I like what I do. I've been doing that for quite a while, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't like it. But I have different goals. I do a lot of sports, as you know, outside of work. And I find having those goals to work towards, like a certain race, or I started surfing when I was, I guess, 38 years old. And
big inspiration, by the way. Yes, I have to mention that.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
You were one of the big...
for you to start?
Yes, I always wanted to. Like, it was always, on the back of my mind. But I never felt like, for example, here in Switzerland, where we live, it's
It's landlocked.
Impossible, exactly. It's like,
but
you showed me other possibilities. So I think,
well, thank you.
Yeah, of course, I have to mention that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that was something. I started, and I guess, I mean, it was something I wanted to do also for a very long time. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a Roxy girl, but you would have had to surf for that, and I was also landlocked in Canada. But I started surfing at one of these like city waves, and the strangest thing happened that I started, and I mean, I wasn't the very worst at it, but it seems that I'm quite the slow learner.
Same, probably.
But I was so determined to be able to do it.
I remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was going there all the time. Mm-hmm. And that was one of those things as well. Somehow in the process, I realized, oh, I'm so happy. Like, this is so fun. I'm so determined, but it's so much fun every time I do it. And then when I finally got the hang of it at this city wave, which is different than surfing in the ocean, I also quickly learned. Yes. But, and I still love it. Like, even being able to do it, I love it. But I think it was this process, especially at that age where you're really not used to learning new things anymore and putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations. And even in that, like with the surfing, and then I started learning how to skateboard, and all this stuff brought me so much joy. And I think it's things I always wanted to do anyway. So I think there's something kind of inside you going like, you should be doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm very good at any of it, but
no, you are.
But thank you. I don't know. But yeah, it just, stuff like that brings me so much joy. And so yeah, on the city wave, I don't do it as much anymore because it's quite expensive as well, and it's hard sometimes to manage with the workload and some of the other sports that I do. But I started surfing on the ocean as well, and now I'm 42, and I'm going to like surf camps whenever I can on my vacations.
Nice,
and
cool, very cool.
Thanks. But it just, all of that stuff brings me so much joy. Like, I feel that being at the ocean brings me joy. Trying to learn this new skill brings me joy. And I had heard this before I started about surfing from other people who had started. Sometimes they also do, there's all sorts of different programs, I think, where like war veterans can also go and try surfing, people that are depressed, and it brings them so much joy. And I thought, oh, that's pretty neat. And then you do it yourself, and you're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, now you know why.
Now you know why. Yeah, and I'm sure it's not that way for everybody, but for me, it's definitely something. And of course, it's something I want to get better at. I want to be able to do it. Right now, I mean, yeah, I'm still, I would say, like at a beginner intermediate level. I travel a lot by myself, but I wouldn't go in the ocean all by myself. So often I'm getting like a surf instructor or doing a surf camp. But it just brings me joy trying to learn, and even getting smoked in the water. And it's awful, but
yeah, it's scary sometimes. Yeah.
But it's
part of the
it's part of it. And every time you kind of, you survive the washing machine, or you catch a wave and you're like, what? Oh my God, that was amazing. That stuff, that just brings so much joy. So I think getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and chasing things that you want to do is a huge thing, because you get this sense of accomplishment. That
yeah, exactly. And especially when you see the progress, you know?
Yes.
Because I mean, I went the whole process with you somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember like you starting and then going, I'm like, whoa, that's you? What? That's crazy. But that was incredible. It is incredible still.
Oh, thank you. It's, I mean, the city wave, if you go as often as I went, it's not hard
like
to get decent at it. Yeah, exactly.
I want to get better.
And I mean, it's the same water. It's just the same thing happening all the time. Whereas if you're surfing in the ocean, it's a very different story. And I mean, some people do get good at it very fast. I'm definitely not one of those people, but I'm determined to just keep getting better and keep trying.
So you find happiness in sports?
Yes.
I guess that's true. And you not only surf, you do a lot of other things. Tell us more about it.
I do a few other things.
I know.
I snowboard
Mm-hmm.
in the
That's
winter.
great.
I can ski, but I love snowboarding.
Mm-hmm.
I also do triathlon.
That's hard.
I mean, there's a lot of hard things in life.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I find, so I really like moving. It's good for me. I feel good doing it. But I also find I need to sign up for a race to really be motivated to train regularly. So it's like the trick I play on myself. I'll sign up for a race and then I know I need to prepare, and and then I do. I'm pretty good at motivating myself. I always joke and say I motivate myself out of fear. Like I sign up for a race that's intimidating,
That's good.
and then I train because I don't want to suffer, or I want to train as much as possible to suffer as little as possible during the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that. Have you ever had like the experience where you could like apply some of the stuff you learn during sports in your working life, in your business life, or vice versa maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what comes from, or like, chicken or the egg,
exactly.
kind of thing. But I mean, I guess what I've learned, at least in certain sports situations, let's say, is especially when I do a race that intimidates me. Like sometimes you're going, how am I going to do this? Like even the day before the race, the day of the race, you're like, I know I've trained properly, but I don't understand how I'm going to be able to do this. And somehow it always works. It's one foot in front of the other. And I think that helps as well at work, whether it's, something's really, really challenging, really hard to do. I don't know how to do it. You have to break it down. And I don't think necessarily that's my strength still, but it is kind of like, okay, no, you just know of yourself. You can do hard things. You can get things done. And sometimes things just take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I think, although I would say personally, or I prefer maybe the feeling of joy I get when I accomplish something in terms of sports, but the feeling of accomplishing something at work that I didn't know how I was going to do it, or if I would be able to do it, or sometimes it's things you really don't want to do, and you do it anyway. And there's, you at the end of the day, you feel so proud. And I think that is just really, it's just a really nice feeling. And I think that's what motivates you. But so, I don't know what comes first, but I think kind of just knowing that dedication or some self-motivation, even when you don't want to be doing something, that it actually goes a long way. And again, as we talked about before, it helps you grow. It's uncomfortable. Definitely. Discomfort helps you grow. And I hate that. I hate being uncomfortable. but
that's what
it's
makes
growth.
you grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's fine. That's good. I love that. Okay, I think we're done here. Thank you very much for all your, recommendations and your stories.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure. Really pleasure. And I think I told you before, but I think you've been with me through some hardships of my own, maybe not together, but of my own. And thank you for being there.
Thank you. You've been through some of my hardships too, or with me for some of my hardships.
Yeah, so. True. And in that case, I'm happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
So,
thank you.
I don't know. Cheers to life.
Cheers. Thank you to us.
Bye.
Bye.